Confused and overwhelmed by social media? Wondering what the next big trend is? Would you like to get more clients and more sales through the power of social media? Welcome to the Social Media Mastery Podcast, featuring your hosts, Daniel Dayette and Ricky Shetty, and a variety of social media experts covering the latest trends in social media.
All right, everybody. Thank you for coming to Social Media Mastery Podcast, and I'm with Ricky Shetty today. Ricky's the owner and operator of Daddy Blogger. He writes about parenting from a father's perspective. He's the founder of Family Travel Bloggers, a website focused on inspiring parents to travel more with their kids. He also runs a Vancouver-based thing called YVR Media Group, which includes YVR Bloggers, YVR Foodies, YVR Dads, and YVR Travelers, and he's the founder of the famous Social Media Mastery Conference. Ricky Shetty's social media presence is, I think, about 100,000 in reach. Isn't that right, Ricky?
Yeah, over 100,000 currently and growing every minute.
That's fantastic. So, Ricky, today we're going to be talking about how did we get here in the social media world, what's happening now, and where is it going. So, Ricky, let's start by asking the big question. How did the whole social media thing start, and what would you consider the beginning of this craze?
Yeah, first of all, it's so awesome to be on the podcast. Looking forward to growing the podcast together, Daniel, and really educating and inspiring people about social media. Social media is so hot now, but it wasn't really all that hot back then. And we're talking about the past year. For me, I look at social media and the birthplace of it, like, you know, those platforms such as Friendster, MySpace. Were you on those, Dan?
Oh, I sure was.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I think I was on. That was back in like 2003, 2004, 2005. And social media is doesn't have that big a history. It's only like 12, 15 years ago, right? So I used to be a big advocate of Friendster, and now Friendster basically doesn't even exist anymore. And then Multiply, that was another big one. I still have a Multiply profile. It's called TokyoRicky.multiply.com. And there's all these pictures of me when I used to live in Australia on Multiply. And then obviously there was MySpace, which was the hottest social media thing around. And then all of a sudden from MySpace, everyone jumped ship and they're like, MySpace sucks. I'm going to go to Facebook. And then MySpace is now still exists, but it's mostly for musicians, bands, artists, etc. So that's how I look at the history of social media, like things like MySpace, Friendster, Multiply. What about you, Dan? How do you look at the history of social media?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I mean, I remember back in the day, when there was sort of ICQ and, what's it called? The Yahoo Messenger, the MSN Messenger. And for me, that's really where it got started. I mean, ICQ feels like it was kind of the first social platform. Back in 2000, when I moved to Edmonton, I hit up ICQ and found people with common interests and actually met up with people and had friends before I even arrived. And but it's funny. Over time, I remember things like what's that thing called? MySpace ended up becoming kind of the musician hub. Mm-hmm. Where I remember in the very beginning, MySpace was kind of like Facebook is today.
Yeah, pretty much. And now it's really niche, like you said, to musicians. And I'm glad you brought up those things like Yahoo Messenger, MSN Messenger, AOL, ICQ. I mean, we all were on those things. I remember I used to have MSN Messenger pop up and, my friends are on there, let's message them. And now I didn't even know if anyone uses those anymore because we all use Facebook Messenger. And Facebook Messenger has taken over from Yahoo and MSN and AOL and ICQ.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, it's pretty interesting. I mean, if it wasn't for guys like Mark Zuckerberg, I know a lot of people, industry experts that say, when Facebook came out, everybody thinks that it was a fresh market, but that's not true. There were already social media networks in place. In fact, I was running a website back then called socialmediatoday.com. And I was kind of profiling the 40, 50 networks a day that were starting up. It felt like there was 1 million competitors out there. Bebo and all these other different things.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even now it feels like there's like a million social media platforms currently, right? And I think Mark Zuckerberg, obviously, he's like a genius, and he's one of the richest people on the planet, and he's an innovator. But he wasn't the first, like you said, because there was like those other platforms, like the Friendsters, the Multiplies, the MySpaces. But I think what Facebook did is they weren't the first, but they became the best. And I look at it almost like as an analogy to Apple. Apple wasn't the first smartphone, and they weren't even the first phone, right? But they are actually the best now. If you look at like the top of the top, most people agree it's the iPhone. I mean, you might have some Android fanatics who say, no, the iPhone's not the best. But I think, you and me are Apple fans, and I think we can kind of conclude, and if any of the listeners disagree, we can hear from you as well. But I think basically Apple is the best technology company in the world, and Facebook is the best social media company in the world. And neither of them were the first. They've just become the best.
So I guess that kind of easily launches us into the sort of where we're at today. So, I mean, why don't you just kind of give us a rundown, since you've got the big following and experience with all this, about which platforms you feel are really, in 2016, which ones do you have to be on?
Yeah, great question, Dan. If you look at current reality, which is like middle of the year in 2016, you look at all the different social media platforms. There's Facebook, there's Twitter, there's LinkedIn, there's Google Plus, there's Snapchat, there's Pinterest, there's Instagram, there's Vimeo, there's YouTube, there's Periscope, there's Meerkat, there's Meetup, there's Hootsuite. There's like so many platforms. It's really overwhelming to be on all of them. So what I usually recommend people when I'm sitting down over a strategy session or coaching people or speaking about social media, I always ask them to figure out who their target market is, their ideal client. And I like the word avatar, which means more or less the perfect person. So like even us, right? As we're doing this podcast, who is the perfect listener who's listening to us right now? And we need to figure out that on social media. Who is, or through our businesses, who is that perfect person, that ideal client, that perfect, like the lead or the listener or the watcher or the social media follower? And where are they hanging out? So every business is different. And that's why I don't want to just say these are the top three for everyone. Because the top three for you, Dan, might be different from the top three for me, might be the top three for someone else who's listening, might be very different. So the first thing I would say is just definitely figure out who the person you're trying to reach is, and then where do they hang out. And I think I listed in when I listed all those platforms, there's at least like 15, 20 big ones. I think almost everyone should be on Facebook because that's pretty generic across the board, and almost every client, every business, every person is on Facebook. So that's almost a no-brainer, be on Facebook. And then that's when it gets harder. Where else can you be besides Facebook? Well, if you're in business or entrepreneurial, definitely LinkedIn, because that's where the business people hang out. That's where people want to do a business and exchange products and services and sell stuff and make connections. They hang out on LinkedIn. So I would say I think most of the people listening are probably entrepreneurial or business-minded. So I would say Facebook and LinkedIn for sure. And then things like probably Twitter is the next big one that most people should be on. Google Plus is kind of one of these sleeping giants because they've been around, but they're not really, not many people really check Google Plus. But because it's owned by Google, you should definitely be on there, at least having a profile and some posts on there. And then you look at some of the current kind of like popular ones. Instagram is definitely popular, and Instagram is owned by Zuckerberg and Facebook. So definitely if you're on Facebook, be on Instagram as well. If you're doing anything visual, like food or travel or weddings or anything visual, definitely be on things like Instagram and Pinterest. Then you go into things like the video platforms, which are things like Periscope, Meerkat, YouTube, Vimeo, Facebook Live. I am a big advocate of doing video marketing on social media, so I would, again, this is just me and the people I'm trying to reach, very video-minded. So I'm on all the different video platforms. I'm also on all the platforms, but I usually engage on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter are probably my big three. Instagram would probably be my fourth, and maybe maybe YouTube too, because I do a lot of video, and YouTube's kind of like a social media, plus it's almost like an entity on its own with video marketing. So that in a nutshell is me, Dan. What do you think are your top three?
Well, I feel like Facebook probably be at the very top.
Yep.
Then I would go for maybe Twitter and basically Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. I think are probably the biggest ones that I find myself hanging out on.
Yeah. What about LinkedIn, Dan?
Well, yeah. So LinkedIn is obviously this. What do they call it? Obviously, it's critical for businesses to be on LinkedIn. It's a great networking tool, but I find it kind of. I never feel like I want to stay on it because it's just the UI, the interface is just kind of difficult to understand and use. But it's definitely getting there. I mean, I definitely love posting Pulse articles and stuff.
Yeah, and I agree with you. About the user interface and kind of like the design and just the overall aesthetics and the usability. I don't like LinkedIn in terms of that, but just because I know business people on there, then I'd be using it more to connect with people I just met at a networking event, or I post status updates on there. Sometimes I'll write articles, but I don't usually write articles on there. I've done that, but I think that's pretty hot, doing articles on LinkedIn. I find my status updates on LinkedIn that I just update on my phone, they seem to get quite a lot of engagement, like likes or comments. So I've been playing around with that. Usually when I post on Facebook and Twitter, and I'll also just post the same thing on LinkedIn. And I'll actually usually Twitter, I don't get anything. Sometimes I might get a retweet or a favorite. Facebook, I usually get engagement, like likes or comments. And I've been seeing when I post stuff on LinkedIn, I'm getting engagement. So I'm always after engagement. So I'm thinking, LinkedIn's one of these things that's kind of like you have to be on if you're in business. But it's something like, I think I'm similar to you, Dan. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram the most because I like those platforms. LinkedIn, I need to be on it because it's a business platform.
Yeah, absolutely. So, just running through the functions of each. I mean, I know Twitter. I mean, basically, if you want up to the second news, Twitter's totally the thing. What do you think the number one functions for the other platforms are?
Yeah, so I think Facebook is very much connecting with people at every level. I look at connecting with my family, connecting with my friends, connecting with business colleagues, and connecting with potential leads and customers. So Facebook is very much the general I look at, because I'm connected with my mom and dad, and I'm connected with my cousins in India, and I'm connected with my wife's in-laws in the Philippines. Plus we're sharing like family pictures, and we're sharing our travel stuff. So it's very much just a personal one at the end of the day. Personal one, but it's also a social one. And I look at it's personal, it's social, and it's business. The reason I say that is because it's personal, because again, it's just, I'm creating all my Facebook albums, my baby pictures, my kid pictures, is all going on Facebook. Plus, it's personal, plus it's social, because I'm connecting with friends on there saying, hey, do you want to go meet up for a drink, or do you want to hang out this weekend, or do you want to go for a movie? So I'm using it very much as a social function. Thirdly, I'm using it as a business function. I mean, I'm marketing my events on there. I do my two businesses, Dan, are event production and internet marketing. So I run a lot of events in Vancouver, and I definitely post them all on social media. And I also do internet marketing, things like blogging, social media, websites, online courses, Kindle, etc. Put those on social media as well. So for me, Facebook is very much the personal, the social, and the business.
Yeah, and so then there's Instagram for pictures and Pinterest and that kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
And then you covered the video ones already.
Yeah. So Instagram, I haven't figured out fully how to use it for business, honestly. Instagram, I post a lot of personal stuff, a lot of like food, because I have a group called Wild Bear Foodies, so I do a lot of travel on there. I don't do a lot of business stuff on Instagram, honestly. Like I'll still post some of the event pictures. So when I do events, I'll just post a picture saying, here we are live at the event, or I might post like a promo graphic for an upcoming event saying, so excited about my social media mastery conference happening, and I'll post a promo graphic. But I don't find I do a lot of business itself on Instagram, but I do a lot of business on Facebook and LinkedIn. Pinterest, you mentioned. I personally, my target demographic is usually dads, like Vancouver entrepreneurial new dads. So most dads don't hang around on Pinterest. I don't know about you, Dan. Are you a dad? Do you hang around on Pinterest much?
I don't hang around Pinterest that much, but I do use it to get, interior design ideas or, backyard design ideas. Like, if I was going to create a new planter for my blueberries, I would go on there for that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I feel I'm underutilizing Pinterest. I could probably be using it a lot more optimally, but it's kind of one of these things that's a sleeper sitting there. Whenever I have some cool blog post, I'll just pin it onto my Pinterest boards. I don't actually invest a lot of time on there just because my target market is not on there. Therefore, I don't want to be on there. Like I said when I started this thing, I was like, who's your target market? Where do they hang out? My target market is dads, and most dads aren't hanging on Pinterest, therefore neither do I.
You know what? That's a huge takeaway nugget for everybody listening right now. If you don't know who your audience is, it's really tough to figure out where you should be hanging out. But if you know who they are, take a look at the very publicly available demographics for each platform, because clearly, I mean, you don't see a lot of business executives or business owners on Pinterest, for example.
Yeah.
I mean, and very rarely kind of even Instagram to a degree. Mm-hmm. But Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, you kind of see everybody. YouTube and the video platforms, you definitely see almost everybody on those. You know what I found interesting, actually, about YouTube is if you want to reach baby boomers, that's where you want to be.
I agree. I mean, I think, like I talked about, Facebook is very much the general platform. So is YouTube, because almost all of us on YouTube, at least daily, looking at something on YouTube, whether it's like a personal growth video, whether it's just a how-to video, like whether you're watching music videos, or even my kids, they watch cartoons on there. So there's so much content on YouTube that we all use it all the time. Not all the time, but, multiple times a day, probably. I know I'm on it at least once a day. So, and maybe multiple times a day for different purposes. So I think it's really, 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 really important to be on YouTube. For personal, again, for business, like record videos, put it on there. It could be just with your smartphone. It could be with a DSLR or a camcorder. But it's really important to put videos on YouTube. For me, I created my YouTube channel back in July 2008. And now it's 2016. And now I have over 1 million views, over 1,000 subscribers, and I make a couple bucks every month on YouTube through the ads and all. It's not a lot of money I'm making on there, but it's just like a little bit of passive income I make through my 1 million+ views.
That's awesome. So just before we leave the whole where are we at right now and dive into sort of the future of social, do you have any special tips for anybody listening right now on growing their followers and kind of growing their influence using social?
I do, Dan. I actually teach a 5-step formula, and I do a lot of speaking locally and also do webinars and speak at conferences, etc. And usually my 5-step formula goes like this. I'll give you a quick summary. Normally I do a 40-minute presentation, but I'll give you a couple, maybe a minute or so. What is the first step? First step is strategy. So building a social media strategy. And I'm going to go through the 5 steps first, and then I'll elaborate a little bit. So the first is building a social media strategy, then building your social media following. Third is managing your social media. Fourthly is engaging your social media. Fifthly is converting your social media. So once again, you go from strategy to following to managing to engaging to converting. So how do you do that? Well, first you got to figure out your strategy. What's the purpose? Why are you on social media? Are you just wasting time on there, like scrolling mindlessly through the wall, looking for like inspirational quotes or stuff to share? Or is the actual purpose and intention and a reason you're on social media? So that's what I start with. Figure out your why, your purpose. And then once you have your why, your purpose, you figure out the big 5, like the W's, like why are you on it? Who are you trying to reach? What are you planning to do on it? Where are you going to do it? Which platforms? And then how? And the how comes into like the following, the management, the engagement. So once you develop your strategy, then you build up your following. And I mean, that alone is a huge podcast on its own. We might want to do a whole episode all about building a social media following. But I think it's basically, and with following, management, and engagement, I think it's very much the golden rule. Do unto others as you want to have them done unto you. So I look at it like, I want to have more likes, comments, and shares. Do you, Dan?
Of course.
Yeah, so what do? I want to have it, therefore I do it to others. So I'm always on other people's social media, liking it, commenting on it, sharing their stuff. Because if I do it to them, if I scratch their back, they're going to scratch mine. Or if I support them, they're going to come back and support me. And I've seen it over and over. There'll be someone I haven't contacted in a long time on Facebook. They're just kind of dormant friends almost. I call it dormant friends in terms of they're friends, but we're not really engaging each other regularly. So my dormant friends, I all of a sudden they see it pop up on my home feed there, and I'm like, oh, I haven't talked to Julie in a long time. Let's like her stuff and let's comment on Julie's stuff. And Julie sees, oh, there's that Ricky guy we haven't talked in a long time. So Julie comes back to me and says, hey, she comments on my stuff, and all of a sudden we've resurrected that dormant friendship. And I do that a lot, and I like commenting on other people's stuff, and I like liking other people's stuff. So I do it from a place of really authenticity, and that's really important in social media, by the way. It's very important to be authentic. You're not just liking and commenting on other people's stuff just for the selfish reason, oh, if I do it to Dan, Dan's going to do it to me. It's really, I like Dan's stuff, and that's why I'm commenting and liking it. So that's where I feel you build up your following, and your management, and your engagement. I'll go into management. Like, you can manage your social media either on your smartphone, your laptop, or your tablet. For me, smartphone is king because you have all the apps. You have like your Facebook app, you have your Twitter app, you have your Instagram app, you have your LinkedIn app, you have your Google Plus app, you have your Pinterest app, your Blab app, your Snapchat app, your WhatsApp app, your Swarm app, even your Foursquare app, your Flickr app, your Pinterest app, Hootsuite app, Vimeo app, Periscope app. There's so many apps, and I'm just actually literally looking at my social media folder on my iPhone, and those are the ones I read out. So all I do is on my home screen of my iPhone, I have my major social media ones I use regularly. So I actually have my Facebook app, I have my Twitter app, I have my LinkedIn app, I have my Meetup app because I'm on Meetup quite a bit, and I have my Instagram app, and I do a lot of email marketing, so I have my MailChimp app, and I have my WordPress app because I'm a blogger. So that's my I wish I could show it to you on the podcast, but obviously it's listening audio only, so I can't show it to you, but I think you get the picture here. You get what I'm trying to say is that on your home screen, you have all the apps, and then it's really easy to manage. You just post on there. I use something called the Instagram app, and I'll post on Instagram, and then I'll just share it simultaneously on Twitter, on Facebook, on Foursquare, on Tumblr, and on Swarm. And in terms of conversions, so we'll quickly end off with that one. The key here, if you're in business, is to make money and to sell products and services. But it's very much about educating first and adding value first and adding content. And therefore, because you're adding so much value, people will buy. It's not about selling first, it's about educating first. So it's educational-based marketing. So my conversions happen because I'm educating and adding value. My conversions happen because I'm just teaching, and then all of a sudden people see, oh, he's putting on this conference, he's putting on this workshop. I like his stuff. He seems legit. Therefore, I'm going to go to his workshop and buy his, $100 workshop, or his, his membership site, or his online course, or his Kindle books. But it's very much the last step of the puzzle. The first step is very much the value creation, the content creation, the engagement, the authenticity, and then the money comes in through the conversions.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Dan.
Yeah. So what about the future? What trends are you seeing right now, kind of in the industry, that people should be paying attention to?
Oh, that's an awesome question, Dan. What trends? I mean, I don't have a crystal ball. I wish I did. Otherwise, I would be a multimillionaire, right? I'd be, getting lottery tickets, and I could be. I don't really gamble, but I could be, and I could be a multimillionaire. But in terms of the future, I look at the past and I look at the present to determine the future. So I look at what's hot now, and I want to be an early adopter. So I look at things like Facebook Live, Periscope, Blab, Meerkat. These things are hot. I mean, you look at a year ago, and what happened is, like, in the spring of 2015, Meerkat came out, and then all of a sudden Meerkat came out, and then Periscope came out, and then Twitter realized how awesome this is, so Twitter bought Periscope, and then all of a sudden Meerkat changed the whole business model because everything was on Periscope. And then Blab came out, and Blab is basically like where you can have 4 people at once talking about a subject, or you can do interviews. You can do amazing stuff about with Blab, and we can definitely do a whole episode on Blab as well. So you look at what happened, and again, I look at the past and the present to determine the future. So the past, we had Google Hangouts, and then that's kind of died out, and then now Blab's hot. We had Meerkat and Periscope last year, and now the next big thing that just came out literally a few weeks ago is Facebook Live. Facebook Live allows you to have a media device right on your phone, go live at any point, And this is amazing. If there's a crisis, if there's a disaster, if there's breaking news, if there's a car accident, if there's a riot, all you do, plug your smartphone, click on Facebook Live. I'm here on location in Vancouver, BC, Canada. There's a riot happening, like the Canucks just won the Stanley Cup or whatever, right? And you stream that live, and all of a sudden people say, oh my God, this is happening. You got people commenting, sharing. So you can share it. You can do it for good things or powerful things like that. But even at concerts, like, hey, I'm at the U2 concert. Here I am Facebook Living. Or here I am watching the seminar by Anthony Robbins. Too bad you can't come to the Anthony Robbins seminar, but here you go, Facebook Living. So all of a sudden, people can be in the room with you or in the street, on the street with you, or engaging with you in real time through video. That is powerful, Dan.
Yeah, no, and what's really wild about that? Like, I was just playing with that whole thing in the last couple of weeks, and I noticed there's a thing on Facebook now called Maps. Have you clicked on that at all?
No, tell me more about Maps. I haven't. You mean like geotagging or?
No, so on the left-hand side, there's this app. I didn't even add it. It was just there already on the side of Facebook called Live Map. And when you click on Live Map, it actually shows you where there's a Facebook Live video recording right now. So right now, for example, there's one going on right now in. Let's get some stuff local to us. The other day, I was watching a live video of somebody in Labrador. I was watching one in somebody in Edmonton. It's the craziest thing. Like, you can literally tune into somebody anywhere.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because Periscope has already been doing this. You could look at for example, I was at this conference just recently. It's in Squamish, and then we actually just geolocated Squamish, and we saw how many Periscope live streams were happening for Squamish, and we could see it within the last 24 hours. How many people have live streamed it? We could watch the recordings, and this is why Facebook Live Maps came out. I guess I haven't even really looked into it, but Facebook Live Maps would allow you to look at like Burnaby. What are all the live streams in Burnaby? What are all the live streams in Abbotsford? What are all the live streams in North Vancouver? And this is awesome. Or like really geo-targeted to like what is all the live streams happening from the U2 concert at Rogers Arena or BC Place. So you could actually be looking at all the different live streams and seeing who has the best angle, the best video quality, the best sound quality, and then you can actually be watching U2 concert in the comfort of your home with your pajamas on. And then you can have multiple angles from people in the upper bowl, the lower bowl, the floor seats. And you actually have this amazing media ability to watch multiple live streams from your computer and with multiple live streamers in the arena. And it all gets recorded. It all gets shared live. You can engage saying, hey, what's the concert like? And then the guy could be like, oh, it's amazing. Bono's doing really good. And then next song is like, The Streets Have No Name. And you could really be engaging with the people in the room. And I just see so much potential on a personal level again, on a social level again. And also, like, say you do a birthday party, right? Like, my wife's parents live in the Philippines. So my daughter is turning 4 in May. So I could do a huge birthday party for a daughter. And then my wife's parents could be live streaming and watching and engaging with my daughter. How beautiful is that, Dan?
That's fantastic.
So you can do it personal, you can do social for family kind of stuff, friendship kind of stuff, and then now comes the big game changer, you can do it for business. So I've already started doing it for business. I go into companies and I literally, Facebook Live just came out, but I've already been using Facebook to create business opportunities. I go into some businesses. I just did this actually this weekend. I'll share with you some concrete examples. I went into a ice cream shop and I went into a milkshake shop in Yaletown, which is a suburb in Vancouver, BC, Canada. And I went into these shops and I just said to them, hey guys, have you heard of Facebook Live? They're like, no, what's that? And I just showed them. I'm like, can we actually do a Facebook Live of your shop? And I interview you and the history of your shop, also about the products and services you offer, and where can people find you in terms of location and also online. And the guy's like, yeah, heck yeah, let's do it. And then I did the live stream. I got probably 80 to 100 live viewers on there. Plus, it gets recorded. That person can share it on their media or press outlets, on their social media. And I could have asked money for it, but I was just testing it. All I got in return, and I full disclosure, I got a free ice cream and free milkshake. But I could have asked for like $200, $300, $500 or more dollars, right? I could have gone in there saying, hey, I have a network of 100,000 people. I have a Facebook friends list of 5,000. I usually get about 80 to 100 live viewers. How much is that worth to you? right? And then the person's like, actually, that's worth a lot. I mean, I'll easily pay you $100 or 200 or 500 for that. Then that's where the money comes in. I, as a social media influencer, go to businesses and do live streams. The company pays me X number of dollars, and I'm creating awareness for the business. I'm the social media influencer, so it's actually good for me to create content all the time, to be in the hottest things, the hottest openings, things like that. Plus, I'm creating good content, good value, and creating awareness amongst my followers, my readers, my listeners, and my tribe. So it's a win-win-win. It's a win for the business owner, it's a win for me, and it's a win for my tribe.
Fantastic.
So going back to what are the trends, I feel the live stream trend, Facebook Live. I look at real-time engagement is very important. So if I comment on a Facebook fan page or to a business, or if I tweet, I don't want to comment. I don't want to tweet 10 minutes later. Guess when I want it?
Right now.
Yes. So if I tweet a business like Air Canada or like WestJet, or if I tweet like Nordstrom saying, hey, customer service sucks here, or like whatever I want to say, I don't want a 5 minute later or even a 2 minute later. I want 1 second later. I literally want the tweet to go out and someone to respond saying, sorry, Ricky, let's fix that. So that's the next big trend, real-time engagement. It has to be now, which is tricky, right? If you're a small business owner and you're working like a 9 to 5 kind of, office hour type of job, or a business office, those are your hours. What happens if someone tweets you at 11 p.m.? What if someone tweets you at 5 a.m.? How do you handle that? Do you outsource it? Do you just have your phone 24/7? That's what business owners are going to have to figure out, because you almost need to be on 24/7, and you can't be, because you got to sleep 8 hours a day, or you got to be hanging out with your wife and kids. You got to have the me solo time, right? So I haven't figured out how to be on 24/7, Dan. If you do, let me know. I'm usually sleeping at least 6 to 8 hours. But I think, and usually because I have a network around the world, I sometimes get messages in the middle of the nighttime in Vancouver Pacific Standard Time. But someone in like Australia or England has messaged me on Daddy Blogger, my fan page, and saying, hey, something. And I'm like, I respond at like 7 a.m. or whenever I wake up. But I've not done it in real time, Dan. So real time is definitely a big one. Live streaming is a big one. And I feel niche marketing is a big one, which is really social media platforms that are dedicated to specific industries. Things like the travel industry will have a social media platform, or the realtor industry, or the food industry, or like the wedding industry. They will all have their social media platforms, because Facebook's general. Things like if you're a teenager, you're probably going to be on Snapchat or Instagram. If you're a young adult, probably Snapchat, Instagram. But what if you're a realtor and you want to just connect with other realtors? Or what if you're a traveler and you want to connect with other travelers? Then you use something like Travel Massive. Or if you're into artists and stuff, then you're using things like Etsy. So I feel it's going to be much more like niche social media platforms springing around. I think this live thing is here to stay. And it's so new. If you're not an early adopter, you need to be, because Facebook Live is the next big thing. You heard it here on the podcast. And then real-time engagement.
Beautiful. Well, I guess that's it for today. So next episode, we're going to be talking about how to build your following on Facebook, set up groups, pages, and some killer tips for live video for success. Ricky, it's great to have been on the podcast with you today, and I'm looking forward to the next episode.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. It was awesome, and it's good to kind of dialogue back and forth. I love to hear from the listeners too. So if you have any comments, if you disagree with anything I've said or Dan said, or if you just want to add to it, please leave us a comment. Please engage with us. Subscribe to us on iTunes, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Thanks for listening to the Social Media Mastery Podcast. To get more information about strategies, events, sponsors, and more, visit www.smmastery.com.